Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we've got another amazing soul coming to us from the US. We have Gloria Hass on board today. Gloria Hass is a visionary starseed, natural-born clairvoyant, healer, has mediumistic abilities, along with having many gifts, including remote viewing, remote touching, hearing conversations, seeing and communicating with spirit, as well as visions and dreams with messages. She is also a helper and has been used to help heal people. Gloria has performed spiritual readings for clients throughout the United States and the UK. She has also worked as forensic visionary, helping police or law enforcement find lost loved ones. Gloria is an award-winning best-selling author. She has published over 30 books, all of which are for sale on Amazon. Her book, My Journey as a Gray Hybrid, is a fascinating and compelling read. It covers many of the patterns of contact. Gloria shares how she experienced a traumatic childhood with experiencing multidimensional contact, which includes intimate interactions with the Greys, which she has come to understand she is part hybrid of a benevolent species of Greys. Gloria writes about her UFO, paranormal, metaphysical, extraterrestrial experiences in her blog titled Messages. The link to her blog can be found in the description box below. So Gloria, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
So yeah, I've read part of your book, your story, and I know things started off as a kid. You've had a really rough childhood, and I really want you to get into that and how you understood that you were really part of this world.
Well, I believe the extraterrestrial part, Star Trek was new on TV, and my dad was a Trekkie. He loved it. And I grew to enjoy, the shows as well. And what was interesting is I started wondering, are aliens real? My dad would laugh and say, no, they're not. And then it was just like, well, what are they portraying? And I believe Gene Roddenberry may have had his own experiences to be quite accurate in quite a bit of the storytelling. Well, one day, my dad, it must have been a weekend because my dad and brother weren't home. My mom was, and I was getting bored. And my mom said, well, why don't you go ask your friend, to go play? And I said, well, can I call her on the phone? No, go for a walk. My mom's wisdom of get her out, get her moving. Isn't that what they tell us when we're bored? Get out, get moving. And so I walked down to her house and asked her mom if, she could come out and play. And her mom called my mom and asked if, this is when parents checked with parents to see if, things are going on, did you really? My mom goes, yeah. So she said, yeah, your mom said that you came down here for permission. So she allowed her daughter to come up to play. Well, on the way back, there used to be, now that it has two homes on it, but there used to be this field between the house, if you're looking at the road, to our left, and our house would be on the right. So we're walking along, my girlfriend just said, stop, and held back my arm. And she's younger than I am. I'm like, what? She goes, don't you see it? I said, see what? She goes, on the street. And I said, and it looked like a horse. So we slowly walked up, and it was half a horse, looked like a horse laying on its side. Ended up being half a horse. And she's like, oh my God, that's a horse. And I wonder what happened to it. And I said, I don't know. She said, go get your mom, which my house was closer. She ran back to get her mom. And finally, I was able to talk my mom into it. I said, her mom's coming too. So we met, and there was a red outline, like a bloody outline of a horse that looked like dried blood. And with the two legs and the head. And well, long story short on that one, our parents thought we played a prank and went ahead and did. I said, how? She didn't leave. My friend didn't leave the house with anything. I didn't come to the house with anything. So my friend got on restriction. We stopped playing together because she got in trouble every time we played together. But it was sad. Her parents were stricter than mine, and mine were pretty strict. So my mom just told me she'll meet me at the house, but give her a few minutes because she wanted to cool off. And I said, okay. And I was all righty. So I'm standing there looking down at the ground and looking at the outline of the horse. And I heard telepathically, look up. And I looked up, and above the tree lines was a silver saucer. And I looked down the street, and I wanted to shout. And I said, come here and look up in the sky. And they just kept walking, and my mom had gone. And I went and I just looked at the ship, and I said, what did this horse ever do to you to deserve this? I wasn't afraid. I was angry. And I thought, and I said that out loud. What did this horse do? So then I looked back down, and I looked back up, and this UFO was gone. The saucer was gone. And I went into the house, and I told my mom, no, it's real. And I told her saw the spaceship. She didn't believe me. She said, go to your room. I got put on restriction for 2 weeks. But not long after that was the visitations by the little green men. So I'm wondering if the spaceship wasn't the little green men. Some people think that they're the grays, but they're not. They were green. And they did not look anything like the grays. They had long fingernails that looked like needles, and they looked like long claws, like scissor hands, like the character that Johnny Depp played. That's how long things looked, but they had claws, and they had bulging eyes, and their faces were rounded, a little bit, and they were about probably my height as a child, probably 2 to 3 feet tall. I don't remember, but I know that they weren't far from my side, and they would plug me in. My mom wondered how I woke up with all these scratches and indentations on my arms and my legs. I said, because they are coming at night. And she's like, who are they? I said, these little green men. They would even move my bed to the middle of the room. And my mom, would tell me, you shouldn't be doing this. Well, I couldn't even move my bed. And my mom's like, help me move this back. And she had trouble moving it. And she was like 110 pounds. And here I sure didn't weigh no 110 pounds at 8 or 9 years of age. Mm. And then they would even come up out of the sheets like demons, and they would rise up. So I couldn't watch anything like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein or Dracula or the Mummy, because the little green men would come and antagonize me, and I would have nightmares. They even would change the shape of my sheets to even look like Frankenstein, and I would scream. And my mom would come in, and she's like, what? And she said, you cannot watch these movies anymore. And you moved your bed again. I said, I didn't move my bed. So I hated bedtime. So I wanted the light to stay on in my room, but she wouldn't, but she kept the hall light on and have my door open a little bit. But they wouldn't come until my parents and my brother were asleep. So my brother, I got to tell you this funny story. He would... and it's going off track a little bit, but he was wanting to really get me scared. So where we lived, the wall in the bedroom was like that, was his closet, my closet. Mm. And he came out of my closet one night wearing a sheet saying he was going to get me. And I screamed, and I wanted to get him back. My mom said, go ahead. So my mom helped time me how long it would take to get from my closet to my bed and everything. So I got in the closet, and I got him back, and I'd go, I'm going to get you. And he came screaming, saying there's a ghost in my closet. And I did that for like 3 or 4 nights. But that ended, his torturing ended, but the little green men didn't stop for, I don't know if it was close to a year. but it was, for a kid, everything lasts forever. And it could have been 4 months, 5 months, or it could have been an entire year. But one night I was in bed, I couldn't fall asleep because I was just waiting. And I was huddled under my covers, and my bedroom door was open, because my parents would open my door when they would go to bed. And there was the lady in white standing there, and I felt such peace. And she told me the little green men would never bother me ever again, and they haven't.
Oh,
Yeah.
how did they appear, the little green men?
They would just, poof, they were there.
Okay.
They were there 1 minute, gone the next. They would vanish and reappear.
Wow. And the lady in white, can you describe her?
She looked like the Virgin Mary. She had her the head dress on, over the head, and she reminded me of the Virgin Mary. And I wasn't brought up Catholic and would have nothing to relate to, but she was glowing white, and just such love emanated from her. And she was about, I would say, my dad was 5'8", and I would say she was about 5'8", 5'9".
How long did the lady in white stay with you? Was that just
A few minutes. And we talked, I don't remember what else we talked about, but she was just reassuring me, the little green man will never come back. You're safe. You're okay.
do you recall what happened with the little green men?
All I remember is them scratching at me with their fingers and jabbing me. So that's how I would wake up, why I had the scratches on my arms and my legs.
Do you think
After they left, I stopped having them for a while, and then my mom would see bruising on my arms, and coming from school. What did you run into today? You were very clumsy. Yeah, I got labeled as clumsy because I had bruises.
Yeah. So, okay. So what age did the lady in white appear?
I think I was 8 or 9.
Okay.
So that would be early, close to the mid 1960s.
Okay. And so you had so you went to school after that, oblivious, and did other things happen after that?
Yes. My brother always thought he was adopted. I don't know if he ever knew that my mom was his biological mother. She was also mine, that he was my half brother. And I didn't know till after her death that my brother was adopted, but by my father. So I don't know if my brother tried to find his own dad, or if he did the DNA testing or anything. I really don't know. He wouldn't talk about it. He was very closed off. We didn't exactly get along. And he used to be extremely jealous of me because I was born with a mother and a father. So my parents made him be nice to me. So one time, my dad had a heart attack, and before that, he had dug this huge hole for a doughboy swimming pool for our backyard. And he ended up not being able to finish it. And my dad said, we asked him, do you want us to fill it in? And he said, no. Well, can we play spaceship in it? And he's like, sure. And because there were steps down in there, and we could get down in there. My brother was the captain. And I asked him one day, we played this a lot, and I would wash dishes in there. I mean, the spaceship had really great accommodations. Even though it was in our mind, we had a great refrigerator and cooking, just like an RV, but only a spaceship. So anyway, one day I asked him, where are we going? He said, I'm going to look for my family, and I'm getting out of this horrible house. I said, take me with you. He said, no, they're not your family. I said, well, then I want us to go look for my family too. He goes, this is your family. I said, no, they're not. They are not my family. And he just looked at me. I said, I have a family up there. And I pointed to the sky that, I want to get back to them. Can you take me to them? And he thought I was crazy, got out of the spaceship, and we didn't play anymore. And so I would go to the spaceship and get inside of there. And I just felt so alone and abandoned. And I looked up at the sky and said, don't you want me back? Don't you want me anymore? Why am I here? It was very heartbreaking. And my brother and I both grew up in a very abusive family. And he even abused me because of his jealousy. So it was like 3 against 1.
Coming back to the saucer, was it like all metallic? Did it shine? How big was it? I know as a kid it's a bit hard, but if you could just describe it.
Yeah, it was silver. It might have been the size of a scout ship. It did have light underneath it that I could see, but I didn't get any radiation from it. I didn't turn, it faces discolor and everything. Mine didn't. And so that's all that I remember. And it didn't make any sound. It was very quiet. And 1 second it's there, and 1 second it's gone.
And the horse, since it was divided in two, let's say, was it like a clear cut? Was it ripped apart?
No, it was a clear cut, like a laser. What we know is a laser now. It was just completely cut like this, right down.
Wow. Okay. And so did things stop for you, or did your experiences always happen every month or so after
Well,
that experience? Yeah.
after that, I believe I would still break up with strange, scratches and stuff. So I may have been abducted, only I have no memory of it, because the aliens can wipe your memory clean and clear. But my other experiences, I believe, didn't really start again until I was in my 20s.
Okay, so what happened?
I was actually, yeah, because I was married at age 20, so they didn't start again until after I was married. I would levitate while I was sleeping, and saw Close Encounters when it first came out in the movies. And I was talking with my husband at the time, and I would look up at the stars, and he asked me, what's going on? What are you thinking? And I said, I'm homesick.
Mhm.
He goes, well, maybe you're one of them. And I'm just like, no, not even going to go there. People, I just completely have blocked out my childhood experiences. I didn't want to think about them. I didn't want to think about anything that would make me any different than anyone else, because my mother had programmed me and trained me so well that if you did anything greater than her, you got beaten and you got thrown up against a wall. She'd grab me. I had long hair. It's not the reason why I have short hair now, but I had long hair, and it's just easier to take care of now. And she would take me and throw me up against a wall and rip my clothes off of me and pound me with her fists. So yeah.
My mom was my go-to person when I had stuff happening. So I didn't talk about it because I thought everybody was having these experiences. So I'm sad that your parents treated you like that. But how did you? Okay, so you woke up, you were levitating. How did it feel? Did you go anywhere?
I remember one levitation. I was impregnated in my bedroom. Yeah, with the grays were around me. They were at the foot and on the sides of my being levitated. And it was not through physical sex, it was through implantation. And all 3 of my extraterrestrial pregnancies were implantations. And the others, I was taken to a spaceship with that room with the tall whites. They looked like they were wearing surgical masks, wearing surgical gloves, wearing gowns, and they floated through the air. And it was a round room with big windows. And there was what we would call a metal table. and that we were on, but it wasn't cold. And I couldn't understand why it wasn't cold. It's like when I go to the doctors or if I have to go to the hospital, these are freezing, those are freezing cold, you know, to help keep germ levels down. But on the spaceship, it was, everything seemed to be at the same temperature and it was very comfortable.
Now, do you remember going through walls, levitating to the ship?
No, I just remember being on the ship, then being back home. I don't remember going through it. I do remember the one levitation bedroom, I was up towards the ceiling. The only time I remember going through a wall was when I died on the recovery table after surgery and was brought back and went to heaven. But that's the only time I remember going through walls.
Oh, boy, okay. Could you describe what you saw in the craft when you woke up during the procedure, what they did?
All I remember is that I was on the table and they were floating back and forth. So I decided I'm done here. And I remember thinking, I've done this before. I'm going. This is, to me, it was boring. It's like, I'm going. So I get off the table and I hear, get back on the table. And I go towards what I think is a door. And they go, stop right there. You're not going anywhere. Get back on the table or we will, you know, they would put me back on the table. So I sat back up there and that's all I remember. And then I was home and then I found out I was pregnant. But there was another time that I went to the craft with a small gray and there was somebody else there with me. And I don't know who it was. It was another human. And we were down in, we were hiding behind like a partition. And the gray said, this, I wanted you to know this is where they brought you. I want you to remember this. And saw it and they were still just floating around. I saw this long corridor off to my left and I stood up. The gray goes, get down, we can't be caught. And I'm looking and then next thing I hear, then I get down and they're like, what are you guys doing here? And then I was back home. I never knew who the other person was. It's like, I want to go explore. Let's go.
Yeah. So cool.
I was in my 20s. It's like, okay, let's just head down that corridor and see where it leads.
I would have done the same. Did you see like medical devices?
I don't know. There were things behind the tall whites, but I don't, their bodies were so, there were so many of them floating back and forth that they were more of a distraction than what I could see behind them.
Okay. So how tall were they, let's say?
I would say probably 6 feet tall.
Okay.
They were pretty tall.
Okay. Could you describe their skin? Did you have a good look at that?
They were just white. They had what looked like surgical masks on.
Okay, yeah.
And long gloves and the like medical attire that we would see when we would go to the hospital, you know, well, now you would see a doctor wearing a medical, you know, one of those white jackets, but theirs was more all white, like a white gown or robe all the way down.
Did they ever do stuff to your belly button or wake up with nosebleeds?
I would have nosebleeds for an entire year when I was a child for no reason. They were unexplained for an entire year. I think I was like 13 or 14. And we would be in church and I would even wake up with blood on my pillow. And I would call, on my pillowcase, I'd call my mom and she would, you know, get a washcloth and hold it on there. My dad would get the ice and pack it on my face. And a couple of times I could feel my nose running and we were in church and I'm like, Mommy, I got a nosebleed. She'd hand me Kleenex. Then I started carrying Kleenex, take me to the bathroom and then, you know, have me put my head down between my legs to hopefully stop the bleeding and pinch my nose. And they ended as quickly as they began. I don't know why.
Okay. Okay, so you got married, you had these levitations happen. Did the grays come to you directly in your
Yes.
bedroom? Did your husband ever see them too?
He saw me levitate when I slept, but I don't think he ever saw them, because all he said was, I saw that you were levitating. And the night that I was impregnated, I remember waking up completely naked, and I would sleep with pajamas on. And he woke up and thought I wanted to be amorous. And well, when you wake up, it's like, where are my clothes? And next thing you know, they're on the floor. Or you wake up and they're on backwards.
Oh yeah, that's a telltale sign, yeah.
It's like, what in the world?
Did he freak out seeing you float?
No, he had a very open mind. He wouldn't really go into depth about any of this, about anything. He always wanted for me to explore. And he had an open mind, and he was very well read with a lot of different religions like Buddha and metaphysical things, paranormal, only he wouldn't talk about him. And I don't know why. And he's since passed me. And because I would always want him to open up, and he would just clam up and say, I need to get back to my reading.
Do you think he was an experiencer too?
I don't know. I really don't know. I can't honestly answer that, but I do believe he believed in a lot of different things.
Okay.
A lot of different experiences that people had. He never discounted what anyone said.
Did the Greys ever give you messages? Can you talk about the conversations you might have had with them?
Yes, I've had in-depth conversation, October of 2022, and what I thought were human births. Well, I had one human birth that I lost the baby in 3 months pregnant, and then I had the other pregnancies. And when my husband was sterile and I'm pregnant, he just thought I was getting fat and I needed to lose weight. But in October, actually, August, I think it was July or August of 2022, I heard you need to write your experiences about extraterrestrials. And I'm like, well, I'll write a fiction. I didn't want to delve into the real life stuff. Let's just do fictional stuff. And they were feeding me information, and I was writing it in fiction form. And then in October, they said, no, your purpose is to write your experience, and you need to do. So I did a save as from the fiction, which will be coming out, which I'm still going to go ahead and provide, because that has a lot of other good stuff. But I went ahead and I started writing it, and it's like, I don't remember. Then they started reminding me about things that happened. And I even got to meet 2 of my 3 children and my extraterrestrial mate. And he started talking with me, and I started asking questions. And he said, do you want to meet your children? I was so angry in October when I found out my kids were extraterrestrials and that they were taken from me. And my 3rd child, I was in my 5th month pregnancy and gave birth in a toilet, and then it vanished before my very eyes. And it was gone. All that was in the toilet was blood from where I had given birth. But I was just so upset. And then I started remembering what my pregnancies were like with the extraterrestrials. It was as if suction cups were being stuck to my uterus. How the baby was being held in was through their fingers. Well, they had like a suction cup, because that's what they have on their fingers. And then it was very traumatic, because I always wanted children. I wanted 10, and I know of only 4 pregnancies, but it doesn't mean that I haven't had more. Because when I was later on my period, I could have been pregnant, because I was like, I just don't feel good. I just, but with my extraterrestrial pregnancies, I didn't have morning sickness like I did with my human pregnancy. So when he started recalling all of this stuff, when I said later on I didn't feel good, it was before my hysterectomy, or it was actually after my hysterectomy. I still had one ovary. I started feeling weird inside, but I don't know why. I don't know if they can implant without a uterus in a woman, because I had had all but my right ovary taken out when I was, early 30s. But getting back to October, it was such anger. And then when I met my children, they had introduced themselves by taking me to the craft and showing me technology. And I felt comfortable because I was freaking out. What are they going to do? Are they going to keep me? What are they, what's going to happen to my dog? And I didn't know it was going to be a very, benign and not robust. I was looking at they were an abduction to where I wouldn't be coming back. And it was more like an encounter and a conversation. So I didn't have any feelings towards my children. I was there. I thought I was just meeting with extraterrestrials. And then afterwards, it took me about a month to keep my anger down. And then when I saw my daughter again, she was asking questions because she has more emotions than my son. My son is more matter of fact. And, my youngest and the one that I gave birth to in the toilet, he was gray and he had gray fringes of hair, but he now looks like a gray without any hair, where my daughter has brown hair and blue eyes and short hair. And she was raised on the ship with other hybrids who didn't have humanoid features. So she wanted to know, why don't you have feelings for me? Why did you abandon me? And I said, I didn't even know you were alive. And, and that was really hard. She had anger, and I explained to her what happened. And she said, don't you remember all of us coming to see you? I was in my early 30s at an apartment. And I said, what? She said, the one we knocked on your door, we rang your doorbell. And I would first time I look through the people and see what looked like 1 or 2 foot tall little gray beings. And I thought they was witchcraft. I thought they were demons, because that's what you think about these things in, 1980s, around there, mid 70s, 80s. And it would be early. And I think wait a minute, farther than that. I was in my 30s. So it was mid 1980s. So I would say, yeah, and it happened the second time I opened the door and I heard them giggling and laughing and running off. And they even would go to my work. I ended up getting fired from a temporary job because they would even come in, and I've come to find out now it was my oldest one who did the nasty pranks. And I haven't, and he did, and he even knocked down a bookshelf off of a wall. He even took stuff that was on my desk and it hit the floor. And the person I was working for was watching me, and I was nowhere near doing that. I could be at the copy machine. I turn around and see all that happening. And he said I had to leave because he thought I was doing witchcraft stuff on purpose, when actually it was my oldest and my youngest. And my oldest has then gone to the dark side and works with the nasties, the nasty grays, and the other grays. So I don't want to meet him because I'm told not to, that it could be detrimental to my health. So I just leave it at that. But yeah, I've spoken with my kids and I've gotten messages. Even recently, I've put up on my Rumble channel that people are going to be having more abductions. And I saw it. I was actually in a gray extraterrestrial body when I was in a room with a person. They looked like they had eyes, like they were looking at a deer in headlights. And it's just so people can get accustomed to their presence.
Having your daughter saying something like that, that really hurt me. Um, so how is she now? Did you ever see her after that?
I still talk with her from time to time. Not that much, but I don't want to interfere what's going on with what her job duties. And I can call on her anytime. I just get wrapped up with things here. Sounds bad. I'm a mom who gets wrapped up in her stuff that I really don't talk to my daughter that much.
You're a bad mother.
I'm a bad mommy. No, no, actually, from time to time, a couple of times a month, I think.
How
And
old is she right now, roughly?
she would be in human years.
Yeah.
Well, she was born in, well, I don't know how long that they stay in the incubators because they take them from us anywhere from 1 month to 3 months pregnancy normally. I got to keep my youngest it core till 5 months. And only because I wanted, after my daughter Trevka was taken from me, and I've learned their names since then, that I wanted to be able to feel my baby move. So they let it core stay for 5 till I felt I was in my 5th month pregnancy. All 3 of them were in 1977.
So you've
So
got three hybrid children?
yes,
Okay, so what's the third one you haven't talked about?
I don't know his name.
Okay.
They won't tell me. The oldest, I don't know his name.
What's your daughter's name again?
Trevka.
Jeffka. Oh, okay.
And yeah,
Nice. Oh, how tall is she? Like 3 foot, 4 foot? What,
um,
3 feet?
she's about my height, which is tall for a
Wow.
gray. I'm 5'3", so I would say she's about close to my height. And Idkor is shorter. He's more 4 foot, 4.5 feet tall. I'm taller than he is. I have a child I'm taller than.
Yeah, nice. So do you know her purpose? Because they all have, work jobs to do.
Technology.
Okay.
Her her job occupation on the ship is similar to what I used to do. And she has had a child, and she has shown me that I got to see her baby picture, which was implanted, and her daughter looks just like her. She's only had one child. And because she wanted to experience that, as far as I know. And her and my youngest son, they're into technology. When I was a gray extraterrestrial, I used to do time travel. So they're just there for maintenance of I know my son does the maintenance and the fine tuning of the technology and teaching of it. And when I saw her before I knew it was my daughter, she goes, and you know what this console's for, and you know what this is for. And, it's weird to see something floating in the air without a stand underneath it. But to me, it looked sort of normal. And I would walk around, and then I would see panels on the wall similar to what they had on Star Trek back in the 60s and what they do now with all those different things on the wall that you can see. It's similar to what the inside of the spaceship looked like where I was with her.
Did you get the feeling of what they talk about a lot, that it's a lot bigger on the inside than the outside? Did you see that?
Oh yeah, I was in this one ship, and you're standing there, and there's this long hallway that goes all the way down, and look like computer monitors floating in the sky, and people on there, and that's where they can do their time travel from. They can go right through the monitors, and then they go where they are, and then come back through a portal and go right back on ship.
Amazing. You talked about your alien husband.
Mm-hmm.
Who is he? Uh, so he's a gray, I suppose?
He's a gray Sasani hybrid. So he comes from, interculture extraterrestrials.
Okay. Now, can you talk about them? Do you have a name you could give us?
I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's Malevka, and it's all Slavic sounding.
Okay. Now, do you know why you were like a part of this hybrid program?
No, well,
Was this
actually, it's my purpose. From when I was a gray extraterrestrial, I did agree to come here, and I was the baby that my mother had was stillborn, and after 5 minutes, the doctor was going to pronounce me dead, and I came into the baby's body and finally
okay.
cried and was born in a human.
So you're walking then?
Yeah.
Oh, my friend, lady friend, she's in her 60s. She's like my second mom. She believes she's a walk-in too because when her mom gave birth, the baby, the daughter, was really close to her. Okay, but the doctor said your baby won't last long. And so when I think she died in the doctor's arms, and they thought she was dead, and she came back alive on her own. And from that moment on, the baby did not recognize her mother. So that's why my lady friend says she's probably a walk-in because she didn't have that connection of the birth, but she came in as a spirit, and she had like gray experiences during her life, and both of her children were roughly my age now, had well, the son would complain of having trolls, not trolls, but clowns in the bedroom as a kid, and her daughter would talk about, at the age of 16, would talk about having trolls jumping on her bed on her and being playful and opening her eyelids to force her to see the trolls.
Hello, you in there?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a pretty cool story. You talked
I
about
didn't
it.
have any connection with my mom, my dad, or my brother. There was absolutely no connection there.
Well, that makes
I
sense.
always fought for connection, and there was none.
Okay. You talked about an NDE earlier, like that you died and you left, and
Yes, I was my mid-20s, and I needed to have a partial hysterectomy. And I didn't, back then, this anesthesia was where they had to give you a beta blocker before you got the anesthesia, or you go into respiratory arrest. And I refused the beta blocker. And I even told the anesthesiologist, Ernie, that I didn't want it. And I did go into respiratory arrest, and I died, and I didn't want to come back. I wanted to stay gone. And Jesus came to me because I wasn't going to leave. Tell the angel, I know Jesus is going to have to take me back because I'm staying right here. I'm not going back. And Jesus came up alongside of me and said, there's still a lot of work that you need to do. So he brought me back and put me in my body against my wanting to come back. It's like,
can't
okay, I
trust
guess I'm
Jesus.
back now. And then I remember the anesthesiologist going, Gloria, because I even saw the nurse straddling my body on the table, giving me CPR on my chest. And here, my surgery was nowhere near that. It's my lower abdominals from having, partial hysterectomy and stuff. And she was with the ambo bag, and they said, oh, she's, then they had the paddles out. They're ready to do the paddles. And they said, she's coming back. So the nurse jumped off. They took the ambo bag off after I came to. And Ernie was right next to my face going, Gloria, what happened? And I went to go tell him. And I was given the words, I forgot how to breathe. And I'm like thinking in my head, that's not right. They said, you can't say anything. So,
Well,
yeah.
okay. So I suspect that Jesus knew your affiliation with the Greys to say
Oh,
something like
yeah.
that. Yeah. Wow.
God did too. God had me, God created me as a gray, and they know everything throughout our entire life.
Mm. No, did you see anything other than Jesus? Can you like describe what you saw, the surrounding area?
Just the angel, and it was all white.
Okay.
White, like white wispy clouds. I wasn't allowed to go past that portion,
Okay.
that part.
So you didn't see like past relatives?
Nope.
No.
Nope, none of it.
I've had people on that saw grays as soon as they died. So,
Wow.
a gray that would protect a portal, stuff like that. So it's really complex. So sky's the limit when it comes to these stories. So you sent me a cool photo of a UFO. What happened during that period?
Oh, that was out of my bedroom window.
Oh,
That was I believe it was last summer. I had seen it and saying, people are seeing these cigar-shaped UFOs. Can I see one? I'm talking to extraterrestrials. Then I hear that go to your bedroom window, and I opened it up and there it was. And I'm thinking, why is it flying through the city? And it's just stationary. So I went and I said, don't go away. I want to get my camera. I want to get a picture of you, because you guys fly off too soon.
yeah.
And it stayed there, and I got a picture of it, and it was cigar shaped.
Wow.
That was it. And I was like, yeah, I got to see one.
Yeah. I've seen a triangle one and like roundish watermelon shaped orbs. Well, like 10 feet wide, let's say, but orange red. But I've never seen a saucer or anything like what you saw. So I know, fingers crossed.
One of the neighbors and she wanted to see what they would look like, the extraterrestrials. And I asked them, I'd like to take her out. And we'd go out a couple of times and we would see them flying above us, above the building. And my dog's over here. And then there was one time there were three, I have it on video, going this way, well, four of them, and then one shot back this way and the other three took off. So I've seen them at a distance, and it's really interesting. And I've seen shadow beings, and I saw some other aliens that look different. I just saw a shadow being yesterday.
Oh,
And
I've had 5 in my bedroom, but could you describe what you saw?
I was taking my dog out. It was late afternoon. It was around 5 o'clock in the early, we call that evening, when actually 6 o'clock is considered evening, but we'll just say early evening or late afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm walking through the parking garage, going to the door to where I have to throw the trash out, because it's behind a locked area to keep this as a secure facility. And I see to my left, there's another door from the building. And I look and I saw the shadow being, it went through the door. The door wasn't open, and it's about 3 feet tall. And it was walking towards the same area where I was going. And for a minute I thought, So as I approached the car that it was behind, I slowly peeked around, and it was gone. It was about 3 feet tall. And it was gone. It was just like, wow.
You suspect it might have been a gray or
No, it was a shadow being. It was
Yeah.
black.
Black? Okay.
It was about 3 feet tall. No, it wasn't a gray.
Yeah.
No, grays show themselves as gray.
Okay. Wow. Now you sent me pictures of scratch marks. So you suspect that they might have been like skin samples? What are they?
Actually, that was the second time I had this. So when I was being interviewed by Dave Emmons, he said I was actually aboard a Bigfoot spaceship by my description, because they were gorilla in appearance. They had long black nails. They were actually not really long black nails. They were furry with black nails. Some of them had clear eyes. Some of them had red glowing eyes. And they had me in a room. They were coming from the front and the back. And then I went ahead and I was forced to go into this room where there was this black netting, and there were like handles to hold on to the netting because the netting would give way. And I'm in the room and the floor gives way and they're levitated. And I ended up having to jump and hold on to the handles of the netting, and I was trying to get away from them. And they were just clawing at me and everything. And I woke up with one scratch on now this is weird, one scratch on my right leg, two scratches on my left leg. On my right shoulder, there were 3 claw marks with 2 puncture wounds. So it's like 1, 2, 3 with 2 puncture wounds. I was wondering, what's the meaning of that?
Yeah. Did did any other like people in your vicinity might have experienced something while you were there?
Not that I'm aware of. We don't talk about it here because they consider me the crazy woman who has these experiences of seeing things that aren't really there.
Oh, yeah. Lori, can you tell me if you ever had the chance to meet other aliens other than, the Greys?
I have. I've met about 18 different types. I've seen the reptilians, and they have a different 4th subclass, which is on I think it's the Zenodians, and they're not known about, but I did write a blog post about that. I've seen, the Arcturians, the reptilians. I've seen men in black. They look like Anunukis with a large, actually they have large goggles for eyes. I saw them standing in the middle of the street for a couple of days. They've never approached me, but they were in the street watching me walk my dog. I've also seen on the mountaintops, which you kind of wonder, these mountains are 20 miles away, and I see these real tall, they're black, they look like people, and they can run in air. So they look like they may be hundreds of feet tall. I don't know. I saw them a couple of times on the mountains that are between me and the other city where I live. I've also had blue and gold orbs. I've had entities fly through my bedroom window. One looked like the number 7, and another one was a white orb about the size of a basketball. And like we said, the cigar-shaped ones. I've seen like 18 different times. I've seen Nordics, and they with eyes that are so light blue, you would think they were, and their skin is so pale, you think they're albino. And she was wearing she had long blonde hair, and she was wearing clothes that were not quite fitting for the season here in the desert. It looks like she was wearing woolen clothes, full clothes, fur clothes. It was really nice. And one of the other women in the complex where I live saw her and said, "That's a Nordic. They're here to keep us safe from the other aliens." I'm thinking at that point they're bad aliens. And I've seen quite a few. I think I'll look.
How about insectoids?
No, I've not seen any insectoids at all. I've seen wait a minute. Yeah, I have seen ant beings.
Okay.
I was taken on a trip, extraterrestrial trip, back to the 1920s, I believe. And there were ant beings. I saw they were in human form, but the person showed me, the ant outline in with what they were. And yeah, this is ETs I have encountered. The Bigfoot, I call them gorilla type people. Anteaters, I've seen anteaters type species, and bird-like beings. Oh, this one was beautiful. I went on my first CE5 event, and it was on the internet, and it was a pleasant experience. And I wanted to see the blue aviaries, which I still haven't seen. And this being looked like a beautiful white swan, and its beak was gold, and then it was colorful with multicolors over it, with blues and different shades of purple, and very peaceful energy. Also, I've seen giant cockroaches. It was horrible. And they laid all their eggs. And I have been in touch with the Galactic Federation because I am used by them, here. And I've seen Grace and Grace hybrid, and I've mentioned the lady in white, the little green men in black, the Palladians. Now, this was bizarre. I've seen the Palladians, and I remember being on their ship. And then when I came back to my room, I was laying in the arm. I opened up my eyes, and the beautiful energy, the different colorful, beautiful energy was wonderful. And it was the next night that Bigfoot came, that I had that nightmare with Bigfoot, with all of the scratches and everything. And I've also seen a skinwalker. And I was walking my dog one morning on January 27th of 2023. It was about 6:05 in the morning, because I always like to check the time. And I thought what I saw was a gray extraterrestrial. It was a little on the white side. And I thought, oh, I haven't seen you guys in a while. And next thing I know, it shifted into, looked like a coyote. It was short, but it made a pig sound. And it went down. It was like 2 to 3 feet tall. And it went down a side street. And I turned my dog around and came back in the building. And I thought, I don't need her to have that encounter. And I've also seen underwater frog species. They're big, they're round, they have big bulging eyes, and I've seen them on 2 different occasions.
Wow. Okay.
And they can make items out of thin air. I saw my dad and my baby sister down there. My mom miscarried when I was a teenager. My dad was down there with my baby sister working on some of their technology. And I followed, and one time when she wasn't there, I went up and had to go into what was above the water, but it was still in the water. I could breathe underwater, I could breathe above and different depths, and go into this one building, and they would hand me a part. There was no machinery. They would just, oh, here you go. They put it on their hand and, hand it to me. And I just like, okay, and then go swim down and give it to my dad. That was wild.
So what's happening with you now? Because I know you've got these books coming out.
I have my journey as a great hybrid, but I started in December of 2022 with last fall, October and December, I believe, of the pictures of the UFOs. I'm putting them in a book and I'm compiling them, and all my different experiences that I've had. It's either metaphysical, parallel life experiences. I can travel multi-dimensions, and I can time travel in multi-dimension, but I can do it on purpose, but I cannot choose my destination. So that's the next thing I want to do, is when I purposefully go into the multi-dimension, I want to see if I can control where I go. But I'm always brought back. When I go into it, I'm usually taken to where I'm needed, and then I'm brought back. But I'm compiling all of this into a book that will be out in 2024. January of 2024, and it's called it's Extraterrestrial Paranormal Metaphysical Events in the year 2023. So I'm going to keep track of all of that. And this is only March. Well, this is April already, and I'm already on page 64. And this morning, while walking my dog, I saw a huge angel by the police department, about 6-7 feet tall, with white robe and big, huge wings, about the wingspan of 10 feet. So I'm adding all of these experiences into my book.
Let's talk about the police force. You said that you worked with them to find other people, I believe, missing people.
Yes. Yes. February of 2020, I encountered a head injury, and I've had to relearn a lot of things. In October of 2020, I didn't have any of my giftings. I couldn't do anything with any of it. And I'm just like, okay, well, October 2020, I was told to go onto Facebook, and I was sitting on the couch, and in a friend's feed that came across my feed was a missing person, and it happened to be a relative. So I saved the picture. I started seeing images, everything that happened to this person. I contacted the police, and I was able to give the police information on what happened to her that I could see. I even could tell you who her abductors were, who her killer was. And I can't say who that is because, that's confidential. I freaked the police officer out so much he blocked my phone number. But everywhere I said that she was, he said, no, she couldn't be there. I said, I see her in the house when her body was dismembered and parts of her were buried around the house. I said, she was propped up on the tree that's outside the house. And I could see everything. And he said, was she in the shed? I said, yeah, she was in the shed. She could hear digging. And I would hear, on another case, I would hear conversations of how the two children were plotting to kill their father. And I saw how they killed him and who was involved. So I get very vivid detail. I have a girlfriend said, you have and I'm thinking this is normal. Everybody has very vivid details things. And she said, no, not everyone. So I've been able to help police on a couple of cases. And I was also on a true crime podcast, I call myself a visionary of psychics, and was able to give it to the paranormal psychologist who was working there with things of these two men were in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were abducted. Even their ship was taken and put on like a freighter type ship. And there was a panel of us with all of this. And this last time when my findings were put on with a different episode, I didn't have that much because my schedule did not permit me just to sit down and spend more time. And sometimes these visions come over a period of 3 months that I get a lot, and sometimes I get a lot right away. Sometimes I just get a little small portion.
Did you ever get or receive problems due to your experiences with the government? Any like Men in Black ever showed up? Like telephone harassment, anything of that nature happened to you?
I've had my computer tagged. My computer's been hacked into by the government.
Okay.
Yeah. And just, I think it was this morning, it all went blacked out, and then it came about. I said, oh, you're in it again, huh? Yeah. So it's been about 4 times since I've been working on my book.
To finish off the interview, do you have perhaps another story that you might want to share with everyone, or perhaps a closing statement?
And
well, anything regarding your
I'm asking what I can say, because there's some things I'm not allowed to say. Just do the best you can. Try to be as amiable as possible. I just hope that if you have an encounter, that you're not traumatized. Don't go looking for them, because if you do, you may not ever get rid of the visitations, and that opens the door to uncontrolled visitations by other alien beings. And while we don't have control over what happens to us at any given time by the beings, just don't go looking for it. Just be happy with, if you haven't had an encounter, with not having an encounter.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on, Gloria.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful story. So to those watching, I hope you enjoyed today's interview. I'm your host, Mr. Gray. More interviews coming up. And again, I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Gray, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.